As I walked down the pitch-black street, a whisper called out my name, sending chills down my spine. I should have kept walking, but curiosity got the better of me, and I turned around, answering without thinking. The night was thick with silence, the kind that wraps around you like a heavy blanket, suffocating and cold. I had just left the library, my arms laden with books for a research project due next week. The streetlights flickered intermittently, casting long, eerie shadows that danced on the pavement. I quickened my pace, my heels clicking sharply against the concrete, echoing through the deserted street. That's when I heard it, a faint whisper, barely audible, but unmistakably my name. Emily! My heart skipped a beat, and I froze mid-step. I glanced around, my eyes straining to pierce the darkness. There was no one in sight. I told myself it was just the wind playing tricks on me, a figment of my overactive imagination fueled by too many late-night horror movies.
But then it came again, clearer this time, closer. Emily! The voice was a raspy whisper, like dry leaves scraping against pavement. My breath hitched, and I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing up. Against my better judgment, I turned around, my voice trembling as I responded, "Who's there?" Silence. The street was empty, the darkness impenetrable. I stood there, my heart pounding in my chest, waiting for a response that never came. After what felt like an eternity, I shook my head, chiding myself for being so jumpy. I turned back around and continued walking, my steps quicker now, my senses on high alert. But something had changed. The night seemed darker, the shadows deeper, the silence more oppressive. I could feel eyes on me, watching me from the darkness, following my every move. I tried to rationalize it, telling myself it was just my imagination, but deep down I knew something was terribly wrong. The next few days were a blur of paranoia and fear. I would catch glimpses of a shadowy figure out of the corner of my eye, only for it to disappear when I turned to look. I heard whispers in the dead of night, my name being called from the darkness. I would wake up in a cold sweat, my heart racing, the echoes of the whisper still ringing in my ears. I tried to go about my daily routine, but it was impossible to shake the feeling of being watched. I would see the same faces over and over again, strangers who seemed to know me, their eyes following me with an unsettling intensity. I would hear footsteps behind me, only to turn around and find no one there. One evening, as I was walking home from work, I noticed a man standing on the corner, his eyes fixed on me. He was tall and thin, his face gaunt and pale, his eyes sunken and dark. He was wearing a long, tattered coat that fluttered in the wind, and his hands were clasped tightly in front of him. I tried to ignore him, quickening my pace, but I could feel his eyes boring into me, following my every move. I turned the corner, my heart pounding in my chest, and when I looked back, he was gone. I let out a shaky breath, trying to calm my racing heart, but the feeling of unease remained. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach, a gnawing sense of dread that refused to go away. That night, I had a dream. I was walking down the same street where I had first heard the whisper, the darkness thick and suffocating. I could hear footsteps behind me, slow and deliberate, growing louder with each passing second.
I tried to run, but my legs felt heavy, as if I were wading through thick mud. The footsteps grew louder, closer, and I could feel a presence behind me, a cold, malevolent force that sent shivers down my spine. I turned around, my heart pounding in my chest, and there he was, the man from the corner, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. He reached out a hand, his fingers long and skeletal, and I could feel his icy grip wrapping around my throat. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I thrashed and struggled, but his grip only tightened, his eyes boring into mine with a terrifying intensity. As I was walking, I noticed a small, dilapidated house tucked away in the corner, its windows boarded up, its door hanging off its hinges. There was something about the house that drew me in, a strange, almost magnetic pull that I couldn't resist. I walked up to the door, my heart pounding in my chest, and pushed it open, the hinges creaking loudly in the silence. The inside of the house was dark and musty, the air thick with dust and decay. I could see faint outlines of furniture, covered in sheets and shrouded in darkness. I stepped inside, my footsteps echoing through the empty house, and made my way to the center of the room. There was a table there, its surface covered in a thick layer of dust, and on top of it, a single, tattered book. I reached out a hand, my fingers trembling as I brushed off the dust and opened the book. The pages were yellowed and brittle, the ink faded and barely legible, but I could make out the words, a chilling account of a ritual performed decades ago, a ritual that involved summoning a dark entity by speaking its name. As I read, I felt a cold dread washing over me, a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach. The ritual described in the book was eerily similar to what had happened to me that night on the street. The whisper, the feeling of being watched, the shadowy figure. It all made sense now. I had unknowingly participated in a ritual, summoning a dark entity that was now attached to me, feeding off my fear and paranoia. I slammed the book shut, my heart racing, my mind reeling. I needed to find a way to reverse the ritual, to send the entity back to where it came from. I searched the house, my eyes scanning the shelves and drawers, looking for any clue that might help me. And then, tucked away in a corner, I found it. A small, leather-bound journal, its pages filled with handwritten notes and incantations. I flipped through the journal, my eyes scanning the pages, looking for anything that might help me. And then I found it, a passage describing a counter-ritual, a way to banish the entity and sever the connection. The ritual involved speaking the entity's true name, a name that was hidden within the pages of the book. I spent the next few hours poring over the book, my eyes scanning the pages, looking for the name. And then, just as I was about to give up, I found it. A single word, scrawled in the margin of the page, its ink faded and barely legible. I spoke the name out loud, my voice trembling, and as I did, I could feel a shift in the air, a cold, malevolent force recoiling in the face of the true name.
I performed the counter ritual, speaking the incantations and following the steps outlined in the journal. And as I did, I could feel the entity's grip on me loosening, its presence fading away. The shadows receded, the whispers grew faint, and the feeling of being watched lifted, replaced by a sense of calm and relief. In the days that followed, I slowly began to regain a sense of normalcy. The nightmares stopped, the whispers faded, and the shadowy figure disappeared. I was free, released from the grip of the dark entity that had haunted me for so long.
But even now, as I sit here writing this, I can't shake the feeling of unease that lingers in the back of my mind. I know I banished the entity, but I can't help but wonder if it's truly gone, or if it's still out there, waiting in the darkness, biding its time until it can find another unsuspecting victim to latch onto. And so, I write this as a warning, a cautionary tale for anyone who might find themselves in a similar situation. If you ever hear a whisper in the darkness, calling out your name, do not answer. Do not engage. Keep walking and do not look back. For once you answer, you invite the darkness in, and it will not let go so easily. If it gave you chills, hit that like button, subscribe so you don't get lost between worlds, and write in the comments. Are you sure you woke up in your own world? See you in the next story.